Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. Inside the Set is a series that focuses on the design and decor of stories that excite us and ignite our imaginations, where we get to discuss the collaborations between production designers and set decorators, and hear firsthand accounts of how those works of art came to be, from their inception to ideas on the page through completion, where we sit in the dark and experience them collectively.
Welcome to Inside the Set with Set Decor. I'm Jon Bush SDSA, and today I'm pleased to welcome set decorator Michael Voelker SDSA and production designer Claire Bennett to discuss the creative collaboration on the Netflix romantic comedy Nobody Wants This. Michael, Claire, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
So I wanted to start off with the creation of the show. Erin Foster is a series creator, and it's loosely based on her life and her experiences. Were you able to collaborate with her, especially into, say, the characters that are based on herself and her husband? How much input did she have? How did you work with her on that?
Erin was very much involved. This was her story. She wrote the pilot, so she was our first call always. All of the character information we ran through her. She gave us a lot initially, just in the script, and then we went back with her, and literally sort of talked about each character and how they related to her family life. So even Lynn, the mother, and Morgan, the sister, sort of, there's little pieces that she'd pull from her home life, which was very important. And then obviously there was stuff that, did obviously lend itself perhaps more to be on TV, and I don't think her husband's actually a rabbi, but it's certainly her journey into the Jewish, religion and what that meant to her, and it's really important to her. So we were really keen to represent that, obviously, and so, as we established these locations and as we got into the details of the set dressing, we'd pass everything through her, even to the point of like, what basketball team did she want to have Noah show? And and it's different from her husband's, unfortunately, but it's sort of, again, sort of just those little details we discussed.
Right.
So absolutely, she's obviously a very vital part of this, and we were, I think, just really lucky to be able to show her story.
Yeah, the basketball was a big thing. Her husband is a sneakerhead. He was really into sneakers, so she wanted to make sure that was reflected in Noah's house as well. And family's a big part of their life. So the relationship with the sister was super important.
I noticed the show has a really strong sense of place. You know that you're in Los Angeles, and it feels like a love letter to LA with all the locations you featured. I also heard that it was all location work. There was no stage work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So was that the most challenging aspect of this job?
For sure. I mean, not having a regular home that we're going to every week was definitely a challenge. Having to roll with the punches constantly. We were at different locations pretty much every day. So we're prepping, we're striking, we're dressing constantly, always on the move. Lots of coordination, lots of organization, lots of collaboration.
Yeah, shout out to our swing crew, lead man Corey Longcar, like the scheduling involved. I think, sometimes I think people hear, oh, location show, it's going to be super easy, right? You guys aren't doing anything, right? It's all there. And it's so never the case. And so, yes, LA, we decided, obviously, hugely grateful to be in LA, number one. Yeah. And filming in LA, and to be able to, we talked about it being, obviously Erin's story being from LA, or being, living in LA. Mm-hmm. So staying true to that, but being able to show off the city in a way where we weren't trying to fake it. We weren't trying to be on, so the clip here, this was huge for us, and it's a very iconic moment in the show, obviously at the end. It's one of perhaps the biggest moments of the show. So not only were we, from a set point of view, looking to find an area that perhaps if you're from LA, you know it well. Maybe it hasn't been shown that much if you're not from LA. It's East Side, which again was an area, something we talked about, showing areas of LA that I say perhaps haven't always been represented that well. And for us, even though it's just the street, we needed to still show that this was a very important romantic moment. So we added all those twinkle lights. We controlled the dressing in the windows. We changed out all these movie posters. All the flyers are obviously ours as well from a clearance point of view. So there's little things which, say, you might think, oh, this is just a street in LA, but we obviously had control of all of this environment. The show's filmed on anamorphic lenses as well, which was something I hadn't done before, but we talked a lot about. And so our set dressing also, we have to acknowledge that we needed to make sure that the edges of the frame were also the wides. For an anamorphic lenses, it meant that we would be shooting a lot wider than perhaps you might do on a half hour. And so we obviously had to be mindful of that, but also fill the frame in a way that was going to be reflective of this exciting, vibrant relationship. So that's why we always carry the twinkle lights or other light sources to especially obviously for the night scene, but obviously make sure that we are supporting this moment, which was going to be so big for the show.
Understood. Well, you guys did a great job. I've done location work like that where I did years ago episodes of Sex and the City when I was the lead man. And that was just a nightmare. You're trying to figure out what times to go to the restaurants, and everything is timed, and you have all the coordination of all the departments, and just a logistical nightmare. But and you're right. You would expect most locations to have the things you need, and they inevitably don't.
Never do.
Clearance issues, and so it's a big dress everywhere, and nobody seems to understand that except for art department.
Yeah, and I think it's a sign of the times as well, especially when we're in these short runs.
Yeah.
I think there is going to be more. We're not going to have the safety, let's say, of having a soundstage all the time, or even the opportunity. The soundstage offers sometimes you that little bit of time to really finesse things in a way that. Not that we didn't finesse it, but we had to be really on top of and really prepared so that when you go into a location, sometimes we may even have only gone in there the morning before, or the luxury was hopefully a day before, and Michael had to be on point with making sure that certain furniture fit in certain spaces. Sure. We weren't having the luxury of a soundstage where you can
come to a gold room and grab whatever you needed. Yeah.
Right. So it is a whole different sort of beast sometimes, location work, and I say it shouldn't be sort of looked down on, I don't think. And again, I think we're going to see perhaps a shift in the industry with where there is a lot more of it. But again, super grateful to be in LA. We were able to use vendors in LA, and find a big
the best crews in the world here.
Yeah, it really is. And like the bat mitzvah, in terms of, I think that's an example where it was a really nice mix of being able to use vendors and pull from vendors from existing set dressing, but also then obviously come up with some original stuff of our own.
Yeah, I love the apples. That was so much fun. It was such a great combination, I thought, of not only the location choices, having a traditional temple next to a very modern designed event center, really was a beautiful marriage. And then the mix of tradition and a little bit of kitsch and so many different elements, family, were all mixed into this. And I thought that was a beautiful way to end the first season.
Yeah, thank you. I think, the location was super key. Obviously, it took a long time for us to find it, even though we knew that this was coming at us. We went through, I think we scouted I think we even tech scouted at one point a whole other place. And so again, an example of us trying to figure out how to put this together in a fairly short amount of time. But also, again, bring the life. This was an opportunity to really show some playfulness. It's obviously the sort of bar mitzvah, Noah's niece. And again, it just makes me laugh every time I see that entrance. They were so good as well. Kristen, just she really sells the character so wonderfully. So I don't know, we were able to bring some color, some life. As I say, the apple was just, from the start, we knew that we were going to have a big set piece. It was a massive location.
Yeah.
And then again, Michael was able to bring in some wonderful table dressing.
It was great to be able to use so many vendors on this, I've got some great resources for my balloons and florals, and we have an amazing graphic department that helped with our centerpieces.
Yeah, it seems like it all came together there.
Yeah, it did. And then, as you already touched on, the sort of juxtaposition between the two locations was really great. In that we found this location. Hey, like for me, it was kind of quite late, but it as soon as we found it, it was a wonderful representation of the two characters. The difference between Kristen, who or Joanne, I guess I should say, is is definitely the curved lines, the non-traditional shapes, and then we've got, I don't know if we have a picture or a shot from the temple when they were on the roof. For me, that was massively iconic because again, it represented Noah, and
Yes.
and obviously his religion and how important that is to the relationship in general. So as soon as we found this location, it said so much straight away of what we're trying to sell and supported our story so well.
It did.
And this was all you, Question. You fought for this shot. I remember this was a shot that you were very passionate about, and had to drag the company up there because it was a timing issue, but it worked out perfectly. Like, it's such a great shot.
Well, speaking of lighting, I've always found that LA has just a magical light, and I think you guys were able to capture that along with your DP, even at night. And so, what was that? Was that something you worked with the DP on, of capturing the light, working with daylight, working with practicals? What was that like? That conversation?
Adrian, our DP for season 1, it was all about the practicals, of course. We had a deep kit.
You say, Michael, we always had extra, and our on-set dresser, Cheyenne, also had, she knew where extras were, because it was, as you said, it was an important part for Adrian.
Yes.
I think the quality of light in LA is different from anywhere else as well. So I don't know. I again see it as such an important part overall of representing the city, and sort of even just the ability to say, I've said it several times, of just being really happy to be shooting here, that we weren't trying to fake it somewhere else. And so I think it's just sort of it was definitely many discussions, making sure, even down to the point, even for night lighting, where we did have several times where we augmented the street lighting with our own stuff. And again, it makes it more natural, right? If we can light with practicals, I think it's more authentic rather than trying to do it all with set lighting, with extra that you don't see.
Yeah, and it truly is a love letter to LA, because I find so many things were represented in this series that I love about LA. Meeting somebody for coffee at a beautiful surrounding, taking a walk through a park. You talk to people I grew up in Texas, and you don't go do that. It's hot. You go from AC to AC, and you didn't highlight, like a lot of programs will do, the gridlock traffic or the crime, but this was more just like, yeah, this is how we kind of live in LA. This is why we love it. This is why we're willing to put up with the other stuff for these beautiful benefits we get.
Yeah, I think we had to do that because we're showing such a romantic story, right? We're showing such a vibrant, exciting relationship, the start of a relationship. And so I think it was important that LA was reflected in that similar way. Like you're right, like it is part of the love story. So it was important to show it. And even with some of our set dressing inside the houses, perhaps a little more aspirational, I'd say, or in terms of the character dressing, because we wanted it to be pleasant and light, and not that I'm not saying sort of unrealistic, but that the audience wanted to be there. So as many times as you see LA as a gritty, hard place, as we know it, I think it was important to really support the relationship through our dressing.
Yeah. It made me think of like New Year's Day, whenever they have the Rose Bowl parade. It's always a beautiful day. And I'm sure real estate prices go up, and I think this series is going to make real estate prices go up. So speaking about the character locations, different homes, Noah's house was nice and clean, had just some small religious touches, but it was beautifully decorated, not too much, but also masculine, with his like sneakerhead, the sports, I noticed the albums, the music collection, the photographs, and the spot where they would do the podcast. There was crystals there, and there was plants, and there was another kind of spirituality. So it seemed to me, looking just at their aesthetics, that these two characters could go together. It wasn't like Harry Met Sally when the Bruno Kirby character and Carrie Fisher, they clashed with their styles. It seemed like you were kind of like planting some eggs, like these people could live together. They could come together, even though they're from such different backgrounds. Their aesthetics are similar. Was that intentional?
I believe so. Yeah. This image that we're looking at right now, this is where they do their podcast. This is at their mother Lynn's house, and she's, I wouldn't say hippy dippy, but she's into spirituality, and I believe this is based on Aaron's mother. She's into this kind of thing as well. But yeah, just establishing a level of spirituality that made the transition acceptance of another religion, I think, easier for the character.
The other thing, too, is I did geek out a little bit and look up on some of your other interviews and articles. And a lot of the homes made sense to me where they were located, like the family home being in a more traditional Noah's family in Sherman Oaks. And then I think his home was in Eagle Rock. And so that kind of also for Angelino's made perfect sense, because it's like I could see these characters living there. So there was it made it all plausible. And being somebody that knows LA, usually people get LA wrong, but you guys got LA right. And it really felt honest and interesting, too, to talk about not stereotypes, but what we generalize sometimes and where people are from. But then they can all go together. So I think that really worked in the choices. How involved was Erin with these locations? Because it's her story based on hers, which did she give you a lot of input, or was that you with the location manager trying to find what was the best aesthetic?
I mean, I think with everything, a mixture, right? Like, so I'm not, we definitely, the location manager, Derek Alvarado, and myself went out a lot. And we did show a lot of different houses as we tried to narrow it down and figure out, this was our first time working with Erin, and her sort of first time, I believe, or one of the earlier times of doing a scripted TV where she was, had the support of a full art department and location team. And we were obviously trying to establish who these characters are. We just had the pilot and we were working out, as we develop them, who, what are these, where are we going with these characters? Give us more information. So there was lots of dialogue. We looked at lots of different houses, I would say, especially for Noah's, to try and find the right aesthetic. And you're right, like, I think she did want to be authentic to where these people lived in LA. There were certain areas that we brought up that she thought, no, wasn't right, that wasn't kind of representative of again, her story, right? And it's wonderful when you have somebody where they've got obviously depth of knowledge, they're not making it up on the spot, that they are taking it as a personal journey. And so yes, she was very direct with what she liked, what she didn't like. Which again isn't always easy, because it meant that we really did have to try and we weren't just sort of, oh, here's the first place we come by. We had to keep looking. But I think you're right. We showed her areas also, though, that I think opened her eyes to different parts of the city. I think I'm all right in saying that, in that I'm not sure how much she knows of the East Side, but when we showed it in a way that also related to the different characters and how Noah from Eagle Rock, and showing LA in a way that I don't think has been necessarily shown that much.
No, I don't believe
and again, unless you're from LA and realize how just kind of the urban sprawl of it all, and all these different areas and what they mean to different people. And I'd say one of the things we've had noted since the show's been out is the sort of how pleasant everybody is in regards to, I'm so glad you showed the East Side, and it wasn't just the West Side, and it wasn't just on the beach, or it wasn't just Rodeo Drive, or such like that. We did show places that again are wonderful, right? That like Silver Lake, that again have so much meaning to so many people, and are iconic, and they just perhaps aren't shown that much.
Yes. Yeah, the other thing I noticed is it had a sense of playfulness, a sense of fun. It, it was a romantic comedy for one, so that really worked. But it was just a pleasant watch, and it was fun, and you were instantly in this world. You guys created a world, a very specific world, which is important for this because I think that's what you needed to complete the story. If it wasn't set in LA, it'd be a completely different story. And so I think that was great. The other set I really loved was the summer camp. So it felt nostalgic to me in a way too, a very sweetness. It almost reminded me of the camp in Dirty Dancing. Was your intention to kind of go with like stepping back in time, a time of innocence almost?
I think so. I mean, yeah, it was. I believe Noah went to this camp when he was younger as well, so it's been there for a while. So yeah, it has that nostalgic feel, like it's been lived in, and
Yeah.
yeah, lots of generations have come through there. So I want to show that for sure in the set dressing.
Yeah, and this wasn't a camp. Like, we didn't go to a camp, so this is one of the opportunities where we didn't have a location where we could just rock. You know, it wasn't. We literally had to do everything. Like, the cabin was just an empty cabin. So I think that was also, you know, we made also various locations at that. So that was an opportunity for us to utilize a space in many different ways as well, which was, you know, sort of helpful for production.
Yes.
But you're right in that I think a lot of people will look back on camps in general with some nostalgia and you know, whether they spent many summers there or not. So that was important through from the graphic design element of it all to obviously Michael's set dressing and to bring that playful feel still in, because, you know, with the games and people playing in the background, like,
Right.
again, making sure that that sort of all angles were covered with something that relayed a joyfulness, which I say is reflected in such an exciting time in their relationship.
Was there any SDSA business members, Michael, that you'd like to that were super helpful in this that you'd like to recognize?
Yeah, I mean, Town and Country was fantastic. They helped a lot with the bar mitzvah. I believe, Claire, you got the dance floor from them as well.
Yeah.
We had Heaven in Las Vegas, of course, in that beautiful New York skyline neon in the bar mitzvah.
Okay.
Several other neons throughout the show. Nest, always one of our favorites. But our balloons by G. I think she's SDSA. I'm not sure, but she was fantastic. I know when Bambi went out of business several years ago, it was hard to find someone that was as good as her. But Claudia's great with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are great. Claire, were you working with a pretty strongly defined palette in this?
No, I think we did. Michael and I talked a lot about that. Again, Erin, when she was talking about characters, was so specific that she didn't necessarily see it that way. I think because it was so close to her own life. And I think it's weird when sometimes when you have personal stories and you don't want to suddenly go, oh, I'm all, you know, I think it was more between Michael and I, if I'm honest, about the colors that we would like to bring into things and what we associated. And I think you touched upon already the sort of masculine elements of Noah's, but also, and Noah's is very clean. We kind of played with the idea of how, you know, this was one of my early boards that Michael and I discussed, and it was probably, again, more just between Michael and I in terms of like the sparse decor. Is this a temporary space? It was very much discussed of like, did he even have help with, did he have an interior designer initially?
Mm-hmm.
Or did his mom help him a little bit as well, or the family help him? And so we were looking for a modern space that was clean, yet it needed to not be too harsh, right? And that's what we loved about this place, in that it did have some wood, and it had, even just down to these tiles, some wonderful textures. I love the kitchen island that's already there, that has that kidney shape, that has the curves that, again, allowed like a wonderful flow through the space. And even then, that's represented in some of the furniture that's shown with the sofa, the curved edges of the sofa, the chairs, that's even in that shot in the background. So there was a lot of chat about that, to have a very clean palette, but equally soft within the textures. And Michael definitely augmented with all those pillows, even to the knot there that's on the chair, and the extra blankets. He was able to bring in a bit of character detail with the Lakers touches. That was very important to Erin. But yeah, I mean, compared to where you go back to Joanne's world, which definitely is more feminine, and probably within this set of photos, we only have Lynn's, which was, again, I don't know if that was ever made. There was some stuff cut out in the original pilot that made it a lot clearer that it was the mom's house, and then it never actually the original show. And so I think it was a little unclear to me. I've had this said to me of like whether even the podcast is set. But what it, and just a little, we've actually for season 2 moved the podcast to somewhere else. But what it gave us was a nice foundation for Joanne's life. Like, again, like we've touched upon the different contrasts between the two families. But in her world, again, we looked for more feminine colours. You know, the sort of, not pink's the wrong word, but because it's almost like a salmon pink, but the more sort of natural colours as well, the sort of the sandy colours, the beiges, but with a touch of yellow. So again, I thought I felt like Michael and I, we didn't want to like make it a crazy sort of definition, so each character has to be this thing, but it was very subtly done. And I think it worked to say sort of just in the background there. Yeah,
there was a lot of subtlety, I thought, to the decor. You know, like in Noah's, it was the furniture had a soft edge to it. So like he has a soft edge to him. Joanne's bedroom was a little bit messy. She had her, you know, all her clothes there, and there was piles there. And so her life was just a little chaotic and not quite buttoned up like Noah's was. And so those just little differences, you really pick it up when you see it in a second. And I think that really helped bring out the characters and all of your main characters, you know, from Sasha's house too.
Yeah, that was very deliberate. And Sharon was our on-set dresser, and she was amazing as well, making sure that she was on top of all of those. And not saying that we pulled it back. That was a discussion. Every time we opened set, the levels, especially when late in the episodes, I think we have Noah's bedroom, a few episodes in where they almost have been living in there. And again, trying to find that level. We had it quite messy, just hearing you say that. And actually, you know, that was a discussion with Erin about pulling it back to find that sort of, it was that collaboration, as I said, about when you establish these characters, it's really important to have those conversations.
Sure.
And not just sort of ignore or make it look like it is a set. I think that's very key to make something look authentic when you find that level of lived in that works, that shows where the character is, and in our case, where their relationship is.
So of the practical locations you used, you shot in restaurants, bars, temples, hotels, spas, gymnasiums. Which one would the audience be most surprised that you had to do the most work at? Because they all look like you just walked into them. And that to me is always the biggest compliment. When somebody comes up and says, oh, this is a great location, and they don't realize you've changed a hair salon into a law library, you just go, thank you. Great. Yeah, we picked a good location. So you want it to look real. Which one of those was the biggest challenge to make look real and authentic and effortless?
We made a whole restaurant at Calamigos, the one where
that was a large event space that we had at Calamigos, and we turned that into a gorgeous restaurant. That was like one of my favorites, actually. I was really happy with how well that turned out.
Yeah, that was from scratch. I say the cabin was completely from scratch as well for thinking of Calamigos. And then I know you've already know, and you obviously know this already from your profession, but every restaurant we go into, we have to change out all of the artwork. I don't know if the audience appreciate that. And even down to going back to the lighting, I feel like you had to bring in a lot of practicals for even the restaurants or the tables. You know, that's always, I say, we talked about lighting already, but those are the things that I don't think everyone assumes that, say, you rock up and it's ready to go, and it never is. And that goes down to the graphics. We were really lucky to be able to, a lot of the time, show the restaurant name, but we didn't always, obviously, in some cases, we either had to remake menus or show signage in a different way. But again, it was important to, if we did have to remake some menus or signage, we made sure that we still incorporated the restaurant name to make sure that, you know, again, we show that we're in LA, right? That that was one of the luxuries of being able to do it and being genuine for you know, real life.
I also think that when people say, "Oh, you're shooting on location," that you're just walking in and shooting, but like in a house like Lynn, like it was an all-day dress. Like we're taking, stripping everything out and bringing everything in. So it is a long process. It's not just like a, running gun in and out real quick. It's actually a very deliberate install.
Right. And then there's the editing and what you can use there. And, and that's always tricky. And then, like you said, I'm sure you didn't have much time in these locations. So that's which items actually are going to fit, which are going to work for the scene, and, and not having much room for error there. It takes a lot of forethought and planning. I also love the collaboration you guys had with the costume department. So it seemed like you guys really must have played well together on this, because there wasn't any big clashes. Everything kind of made sense. The characters' wardrobe was also felt like it matched with the furniture in the house and the place that you chose for the location for them to live. Did you work closely with the costume department?
Yeah, I think it was always those early emails when, especially, it was sending them location photos, very important, obviously, because again, it was showing that this could be the palette, this could be the existing walls, etc. And then and if it was like, Michael was very good with if we had them in bed, or showing the sheet options, or we're thinking of this. What have you got them in? A lot of the time, I mean, that was. I mean, it's what you do anyway, right? But I think it was particularly important, like you've just mentioned, when sometimes we don't, it's not like they have the luxury to go and walk onto a sound stage, that for them, they're showing up the day of on the location. So without that communication, there could have been great errors. So no, it was just like anything with a show that is run well, it's communication and it's collaboration. They were probably more, I feel like when we talked about the color palette, I think they had it defined slightly more with Erin for certain characters. Obviously, the red of Joanne in the first two episodes was obviously a very important choice, and with her in the red in the temple, so there was perhaps more color we were able to then know about, and so we're very careful. Those conversations that kind of happened in the background early on. So that was, I say, making sure that we were acknowledging that.
Yes.
And then I think Michael's really great always of just about color in artwork as well, and it not being very conscious of the palette when you choose certain pieces of artwork, and making sure that it doesn't pull the eye, or it pulls the eye just the right amount. It never distracts from the scene or distracts from the action. And I'm not saying, sometimes I think it's smart as a decorator to have an option, especially on location, to come with some different variety and find that right balance. Because I say, you can't be in a set where all of a sudden everyone wants to look at the artwork and not the scene that's happening.
So being that everything was a location, I just had nightmares thinking about your job, thinking about, okay, we went through all the tech scouts with everybody, then they're going to show up and it's going to be dressed. You've sent them floor plans, you've sent them mock-ups of the set, yet for some reason, for a lot of people, they remember what was there on the scout. And so they walk in, they go, oh, this is different. And that's happening 5 times a day. Imagine there's a lot of hand-holding there when you open the sets. Walk me, was there any curveballs? Because I know I've had that where the director will say, well, we're going to do the scene in this chair that's no longer here. Where is it? And it's in storage. I mean, did you have to deal with that, or did everybody was on the same page?
I feel like everybody was on the same page.
I think, again, and I may have already touched on it a little bit in terms of, I think it was more to do with the level of lived in. That we had a lot of discussions opening set, so especially like you've already noted that Joanne's house was quite messy deliberately, and I think it was finding the balance. I feel like we had many discussions about how was her bed made, is her bed not made, what's on her nightstand, what product would be on her nightstand, things like that. I would say no. I mean, I think that we had some really great directors, and they obviously were very so they sort of. I don't think there was any. On this one, I don't think there was any great surprises for them. And Erin, for the most part, again, we tried to send her photos in advance as much as we could.
Right.
don't believe there was any massive surprises in that way. And if there was, it was, let's say, it was more levels of things. I feel like we may have pulled back, even with the sort of Judaica. In some elements, we pulled back, or things like that, making sure that we're again representing the characters how she wanted it to be. Or if there were certain, we got family photos, for example, of the actors that we're able to dress in, and they were more things where perhaps the actors hadn't seen. It's always nice, I feel like, when they walk onto a set and have something really nice. It's not just some random photo. It's actually a photo that's really them, or really them when they were younger or such like. So there were nice little touches like that actually, rather than a bad surprise, it's a really nice surprise when they walk onto set and feel like, yeah, this is our house, this is our place.
Yes, that's great. So this project was a huge logistical challenge. Is there anybody you guys to mention special recognition for pulling this feat off? Art directors, locations, hey, maybe the grip and electric department played really nicely. Anybody you'd like to say that was key in making this puzzle work?
A huge shout out to my lead man, Corey Longcar. He's amazing at scheduling and getting along kind of with all the different departments. He's my rock. Like we've been working together for 10 plus years, and I couldn't do it without him. My buyer, Mark Feiner, he's amazing. And yeah, our on-set was great. Cheyenne Lee, she's fantastic. And then Silas Brandon, Ronnie Levette, stalwarts with my crew. Love them to death. They're fantastic. The best in the business.
Great.
Yeah, really, really, I can't say highly enough for the set decking crew. As you said, like, it's until you do a show where every day you're on location. And I mean, Corey's relationship with transportation was so important. Malcolm Mazer, who's a long, wonderful transfer coordinator, and also, made sure that we were, that pairing of being able to coordinate at just locations every day is crazy. So very grateful to them. My art director, Julianne Louvre, graphic designer, Whitney Amaral. Like, again, we when you go in a show like this and it's so fast paced, and even with half hour, I think it's not acknowledged enough with just the fast pace of even a half hour show when you've got 5 days and you're on to the next one. For scripted, it's, especially when you don't always get the script, to have crew that are so experienced and dedicated and diligent. Like, I think Michael and I really, well, a lot of these people we've worked with previously, but it is important that we have people who are detail oriented and I say sort of believe in the process. And everyone was so happy to be in LA. I can't stress that enough. I really hope that there's more filming brought back to LA, because we really do have the best crews here, I think. And again, having not even grown up here or lived here all my life, like, my experience of just seeing the LA crews and again, our vendors, and some of the vendors, we've already shouted out some of just being able to work with us. There's other parts of the country where you can't get the response, and they don't understand the timeline.
Right.
And so, as I say, I really do hope that more filming is brought back to LA and things start to pick up a little bit in that regard. And it's acknowledged that I say a large part of it is the crew experience and the businesses, the local businesses here make filming so great.
Right. And this one, there's currently, I don't want to get political, but there's legislation to get a bigger tax incentive to compete with the other states. And this is this should be like an ad for this show, because it benefits all the different areas of LA, outside of LA. Everybody's featured, everybody's, getting a piece of this, because that's what it takes to make a production. All this money was spent locally. Yeah. And that's what's really great about it. And this should be a showcase for that program to legislatures. But I'm curious about your work with the director of photography. I thought it was a beautiful through line. Sometimes you see series where they change and there's different lightings, but this felt cohesive. Did you have the same DP for all the episodes of the first season?
Yes, we did. Adrian, and he was wonderful. And it again, comes down to that collaboration, the communication. coming on, not always being able to come on scouts, but still, and he had a solid team as well of who, his team of being able to relay information. And it wasn't easy, as you know, we shot a lot of nights as well, and the struggle of when you don't on a soundstage and you start to lose light, or
Yes.
it really isn't easy. And I would say those conversations that we had about practicals of also just being, even if we went into a space and there was some architecture detail, like the temple with the stained glass, or Noah's even with the massive window, or great, this.
That.
I mean, to me, again, I was very having those conversations straight away, pointing out the different architecture details that were so significant that I believe show off the different characters so well. He was obviously very keen on these neons in the clip and Michael obviously was very, from the early days when he was shopping these, showing them, what they needed for power, etc. And here, we definitely augmented some of the lighting here, the neons, all of this has been discussed in terms of prep, and I can't speak highly enough of what he and his team did in terms of the collaboration of it all, and the sort of just bringing it all together in a really nice way.
Right. That's so true. You also gave him a lot to play with all the windows that he could light through, the practicals, the spaces that's set, and then the variety of giving background things to do. So that it made it very active and alive. And so sometimes you see a fall off on certain, some productions, but this one, it was every frame was filled, not in a chaotic way, but in a way that made sense and realistic.
No, absolutely. And again, kind of, sometimes I think with the half hour, especially the half hour comedy world, your frame can get really small.
Yeah.
And I think here it was talked about very much like the anamorphic lenses, like I've said, the wider angles. He was very keen on making sure that we've established the world, especially season 1, where we are figuring out where we are, and that also just sort of supports that whole sense that our world is part of their love story, that this is their environment, that it's very, and it's vibrant and alive. And I love that the bar mitzvah location, again, like you mentioned, the windows and the shapes, all of that adds interest. And I think again, it kind of just helped just support their love story. I think this show, again, we were given the opportunity to really, through dressing, show real nice contrasts between the different characters. You don't always get that opportunity on shows. And again, that's partly the great work of Erin and her writing team. But to have one family so traditional, and to have another character who, again, is perhaps more, not just less traditional, but sort of, she has a very perhaps more chaotic way of living even, and that just to be able to represent that through the dressing and the sets was just really exciting for us. And to say sort of it's one of those opportunities through where you really we are part of the storytelling process.
Yes, and you definitely pull that off, because you could, when you opened a frame, you knew whose world you were in, and they all made sense, but it wasn't over the top, and it wasn't, it wasn't stereotypical. It was also nuanced, and yes, you can see the traditional fixtures at Noah's parents' house. I love the dining room set, and you can picture being in that space, and you kind of felt what part of town you'd be in, versus Noah's his house felt different. It was it was a different vibe, different, almost light. And so that was really well achieved by you.
We talked a lot about how, like, with Joanne feel walking in here, and how that's different as she's grown up, and how that it may have, but through some of that dressing, might have made her feel uncomfortable, just in a way of this is almost like a foreign world I'm coming into.
Right.
And again, so I say through that dressing, we were able to highlight those points. To help support her feelings, and not just, from what the words that she was saying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it really felt like, she was walking into a foreign environment, a formal family dinner that's traditionally held every week, and she didn't have that in her life.
Yeah.
And there's always the part where you feel like you're auditioning when you meet your in-laws for the first time and had the uncomfortableness of that, trying to be yourself, just like he was awkward when he met her family. You know, this was more casual than he was used to, and then he had to go change his outfit because he felt awkward. And you know, we find ourselves doing things. So a lot of that I could relate to, you know, and I think most people can relate to those firsts that you have that were represented, the first kiss, the first, you know, contact, the first meet. Those are all such important moments. And to put the characters in kind of uncomfortable situations so they have to rally to be themselves is kind of what this story is, because these characters fell in love with who they really were authentically, not who they were trying to portray themselves or put their best foot forward. And so that was well represented.
Yeah, I think that's a good, that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah. I was looking at the Netflix log line, and it's agnostic sex podcaster, newly single rabbi, fall in love. And as you've just wrapped season 2, it seems like the audiences have fallen in love with you and your work. So congratulations on your accomplishment.
Thank you for, having us. We really enjoyed talking about the show.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Inside the Set with Set Decor. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, setdecor.com.